By the end of this video, you'll be able to create a website just like the one you're seeing on the screen, where you can paste the link of any website you want. The system will start analyzing this site and extract all the visual data from the application. If I open this site in another tab, we can see all the visual characteristics, right? Especially this green that is much more eye-catching, which was identified by our system here, right? Look, this lighter green, this darker green, which we can clearly see is exactly the same palette, as well as the application's fonts, the CSS code, and also the logo that we can now extract from any site we want. A video where we'll be using Lovable and also the FireCrawl API, which is incredible and is completely free for a limited time. So this video is super cool. Stay with me until the end and let's get right down to business. If you don't know me, a very warm welcome to the channel. My name is Rafael, but I'm better known as Rafa Voss. I'm the official Lovable ambassador here in Brazil. And this channel is exactly for you. For those who want to bring their ideas to life and want to learn how to create applications without needing to code, just by using artificial intelligence. If you like content about artificial intelligence, creating applications and automations, this channel is for you. So I invite you to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Alright, so the platform we're going to be using is the Lovable platform. The link will be down below. In fact, if you create your account using the link down below, you'll get extra credits every time you top up your account with more credits. It's a great tip even for those who already use Lovable to create another account through it. Then here in Lovable, we can start an application, and that's what you'll see throughout this entire video just by using very simple phrases. And as I said at the beginning of this video, today we're going to be creating an application that will scan any website that our user submits to it. In other words, our application needs to have a field where if the user submits a site, for example, iFood, it has to get several visual characteristics of that site, like the logo, font, and also what the colors and the site's CSS are. Just a side note for those who aren't developers, the CSS document I mentioned, you can think of it as a folder for that application, which contains all the visual characteristics, especially those related to the application's colors. And to start our application, and since you've already left your like and subscribed, I've created a document that will also be available down below in the video description for you. It's exactly this one, which has a prompt that will help us start this application that we'll be developing throughout this video. So basically, we'll just need to copy all of it. Look, we have these quotes here that mean it starts and ends the prompt. It's this whole thing right here, and we're going to paste it here into our Lovable. Here I'm just going to organize our prompt a little bit, okay? Because it skipped more lines than necessary here, just so we can send it to it well organized. And now let's take a look at what's written in this prompt. Create a web application called Brand Kit, where the user enters a website's URL as we were planning earlier, and the system automatically analyzes the page using the FireCrawl API to crawl the site. The application should extract and return a complete report containing. And as I said, it's good to have each point that needs to be in our report organized here. Down here, I added a bit more about the context, just so it really gets the idea of what we want, but basically it's explaining what we talked about in our planning. And one thing you might be wondering about is this FireCrawl API that I mentioned here. What is that? As it's already saying, it's saying that this API here will be responsible for doing the crawl. In other words, all the scanning we want to do on that site, the user is submitting. In other words, this technology here, FireCrawl, which is actually open, and I'll leave the link down below for you, will be responsible for doing all this extraction of all the visual information from that reference application. And for those who don't know, an API is used for exactly that, to use FireCrawl's technology within our Lovable project. In other words, trying to explain this a bit better, we are creating a system, which is the Brand Kit, that we'll use through an API, meaning an external connection to another application, which is FireCrawl, which will be responsible for doing all the scanning of that reference site that the user is submitting. That's exactly the power of using an API within our application. FireCrawl, as I said, is responsible for doing this scan. So with an API, we can enhance our application to be able to do exactly this scan as well. This is a very simple explanation of an API's functionality, okay? So I'm going to turn on our chat mode here and send the prompt to it. Using the chat mode is something I've been recommending a lot here because we ensure that we have a whole plan first before executing any command that we're sending here in Lovable. And to do that, it asks a few questions here. So here we go. Do you want to save the history of analyses performed for future reference? In other words, do you want it to have a login where each user needs to create an account and have their scan saved, right? But in this case, no, right? Our application will be a little simpler, right? We're going to choose just instant analysis, so anyone who has this link will be able to perform the scan here. What visual style do you prefer for the interface? I'm going to choose colorful and vibrant. Let's see what it will prepare for us. What extra features would you like to include? And here there are a few that it gives as options, right? I like this one to copy the color palette, and that's fine. I think that's it. And now that we've answered everything correctly, let's submit. As I said, with the chat mode on, it creates a plan for us. It's right here, okay? So this is our site, the brand kit, right? A modern web application, right? That uses the FireCrawl API. The pages have the main page, the results page, right? Where it will show the colors, the fonts, the CSS, and the logo as well. The technical architecture is here too, and it says, that it will be integrating with FireCrawl. Obviously, to connect with FireCrawl, it needs a backend, right? Meaning a system running all the application's logic behind the scenes. So as a requirement, it says we need to connect with FireCrawl, which is exactly this application here, whose link, as I said, is down below, and also Lovable Cloud. So let's implement the plan. The first thing it asks for then as an authorization for our application is Lovable Cloud, right? Which is our backend, which I said is the system that will be running behind all of this. So let's allow it. Now, the other requirement that it even mentioned in the plan, right, was for us to connect with FireCrawl. So for that, we need to make that API connection. So let's click here on Add Connection. And if you're watching this video before the last day of January 2026, you have the possibility to use this FireCrawl API for free, which is exactly this application here. Look, it's written right here. I'm even going to translate it to make it easier for everyone. Look, FireCrawl is free to use until the end of January 2026. But if you're watching after that date, you can click here on your credentials, and here you have to enter your FireCrawl API key because it needs to charge for it somehow. To get the API key, you just have to come here to the FireCrawl website and create your account. You can log in here with Google if you prefer. And after you create your account, here on the dashboard, you'll have the option here for API keys. And here will be your API key, okay? You can create a new one, but you just need to copy and paste it exactly in this field here, and that's it. You'll have the same functionality that we're going to have from now on. Obviously, since I'm before that date, I'm going to use this option up here, Managed by Lovable, and I'll create it. There we go. Here's our site, right, that it developed. Let's see if this is going to work. The first thing I need, obviously, is a reference, right? And I'm going to go to a website, in fact, of a good friend of mine, who is Daniel Lino. This is Abacate Pay. It's simply an application, as I said, from Daniel, who is a great developer that's been growing a lot in the market, mainly because of this solution. The payment method that we've already integrated in other videos here, and now we're going to test it to see if we can extract the entire design of his application, right? Let's copy it here via the Abacate Pay URL, and obviously you can test it with any site you want, okay? Let's go back to Lovable and we'll click here and paste. Now let's click on Analyze and look at what it managed to get for us here. It's exactly the color palettes from his application, right? So all these greens here, everything is correct, just as we imagined. It's working super well. Here we have the fonts that he's using within his application. Here, the main CSS seems not to have been found, okay? We'll adjust that in a bit. And here we have the logo, right? Let's try clicking on Open in a new tab. Let's see if it finds it. And I'm clicking here too, and it's not opening for me, okay? So, okay, right, it's about half right. It's getting the colors, which are exactly these. Here are the fonts, and the CSS and the logo are not working. So let's take a screenshot of this and send it here in our chat. I'm going to turn on the voice mode here, and let's ask it what might be happening. I couldn't find the CSS elements of the application. Also, the logo could not be found either. This is a bit buggy here, but it's because I'm using that translation that isn't native to the application, right? Look at this. Now it's all good. Let's activate our chat mode and send. It identified the problem and even drew up a correction plan here, where the edge function will also be looking for the CSS file and will also try to find the logo part. Since the plan is all correct, let's click here to implement the plan. It says that everything is all right? Let's close this and refresh the page and try one more time. I've put in the Abacate Pay link and let's click Analyze. Let's see what happens. Okay, it found the colors here, 20 colors, 5 fonts, and look, we now have the logo and the CSS here, right? Before we check how it is, let's try to see if the logo is working. And great, right? We managed to extract the logo here. And here in the CSS part, it got a little confusing. Why? What do I need here, okay? And obviously, this only depends on whether you have some programming knowledge. But when you go to the pages code, for example, here in the code of the application we're developing, we have a file called index.css. And here we have the entire layout part of our application, so to speak. So we have the root, which is like the light mode of our application. And we also have the dark part of our application, right? Which is like the dark mode of our application as well. So what I needed to extract is exactly this, but from the Abacate Pay application. So that's exactly what I'm going to ask for here in the chat as well. So I wrote, actually, I need you to generate the :root and :dark file for the user to be able to copy. I'll turn on the chat again and send. I could have even said, right, that I wanted to create the layer base of the application here, or the index CSS anyway, regardless of how you say it. You just need to convey the idea you want here. Now it understood what I meant. It was really a prompt problem on my end before. It drew up a plan, right? It showed here a structure of the generated CSS, what it would look like, which is exactly this. And now let's implement the plan. All right, it says it's finally complete, right? So let's once again grab the URL from Abacate Pay. Let's put it here on this site and analyze. Everything's correct up here. The font's here too. And look at what we have here. We have all the variables correct, okay? Here we also have the logo, right? Which, as I had already shown, is working. We can even download the SVG of the logo here. And there's even a little bonus that we can add to make this even better. And to finish up now, the final tip I have for you is this incredible website here called TweakCN, which I've actually mentioned here on the channel before, where you can test various different types of designs for your application. It's a completely free platform, by the way. You just have to click on try it now. Remember that the link obviously will be down below for you as well. And here you have the option to see various different types of designs. Look, I can put this amber minimal, this amethyst haze. Anyway, I don't even know how to say this, but here on the side we can see, how it would look in our application if we implement a certain theme. And since we generated this file here, now we just have to copy it, come here to TweakCN and click here on import. And now we just have to paste it exactly as it was stated in our system. We click here on import and look how incredible we managed to bring in the exact elements that are being shown up here, right? Look, the primary color is this one and it's here. And here on the side, we can visualize how these colors we just extracted would look in our application, regardless of the style of the application we're creating. Obviously here we could copy the exact style of the application, right? Although we would need to download the font in our application for it to look right. But obviously, if you're creating an application, you don't want to be a copy of someone else. You can use all this as a reference and make changes. For example, let's say I want to change this background here. Look, these colors here to red, let's suppose, right? Obviously, this doesn't look very good at first, but you can easily adapt and modify it. And once you are truly happy with the result that you see here, you can simply click here on code, and then you can copy this design here. Go back to your application, the one you're developing. Let's say it's this one. And ask Lovable, change the style of my application to this index.css : and I'll open quotes and paste exactly what we just exported from TweakCN. It's as simple as that, and then our application will have a style very similar to the one on Abacate Pay. I'm not going to make any modifications right now precisely because I like this design here, but one thing I want to make clear, especially if your goal is to actually copy a design, is that you'll probably also need to download all the fonts that are installed in the Abacate application. Not all fonts are available here in Lovable. So at this point, you would need to download that font, drop the file here inside our project, and then that's it. Everything will be fine. Did you like this application? This video was much more for us to learn how we can integrate this FireCrawl API, which has several features, and in fact I'll be bringing several videos throughout this month for us to explore this connection between Lovable and this incredible API even more. But I also want to hear your opinion, what you thought about it. Comment down below, give ideas of possibilities for applications we can make with this API. Anyway, thank you very much for staying until the end. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to learn more about Lovable and how to create even more robust applications, click on the first link in the description below, and I'll leave another video here that I'm sure you'll love.